It's Sharla K coming live to you with another Forever Friends Academy live episode. How are you guys doing? This is the place where I encourage you to love to your fullest capacity, and we help people develop relationships that last a lifetime. How are you guys doing? Happy Thursday. It was a gorgeous day where I live. I'm so happy. I'm like just savoring all the beautiful, still summer vibes. Days that we're getting. I'm so happy. So hopefully you guys enjoyed your day. I definitely enjoyed mine. It was a very productive day, still is. I'm on with you guys. But then I was also able to kind of enjoy seeing my kids play in the park with their friends because it's such still nice weather. So I'm soaking it up, y'all. I'm soaking it up. All right. But let's get into tonight's topic. Tonight is basically, I think, the wrap up of us talking about how to have inviting conversations, right? How to have better conversations. We know that communication is key in relationships. We know that communication is happening all the time, whether you're vocalizing it or not, right? Because we communicate honestly in everything that we do, right? Everything that we do, from our disposition, from our micro expressions and everything, the actions that we, take in life, all of it is communicating something. As I like to always say, our entire life is a prayer unto God. So it's not in the times that we say that we're going to dedicate and take the time out to connect with God, etc., or when we decide to traditionally clasp our hands, or whether we're doing it in church and so on. Honestly, your whole life, all of your decisions, all of your thought patterns, your behaviorisms, all of those communicate things to your creator. And just in that same way, that's what occurs in our relationships. So whether we intentionally put aside to say, I'm going to communicate this particular thing to my partner, before that conversation even happens, there are many things that are being communicated between us, right? To each other. So the more we understand that, and the more we develop skills that create an inviting atmosphere, so that we can, be excited and inspired and comforted to have the conversations with our partners, the people that definitely, if you're in a marriage, the person that you vowed and dedicated, in covenant to have and spend your entire life with. So you want that to be a person that you can come to and express the highest of high moments in life. And you want to be able to come to that person where you're feeling maybe a low moment in life. You want to say, okay, that's the person that I know I can come to, that it's going to be a safe, inviting space for me to come in. So, hey, Cassie, 444, I think this is your first time to the podcast. If it is, welcome. Thank you so much for hopping in. We are talking about how to have better conversations in relationships. And this is not just for intimate relationships. Everything that we talk about tonight, I am praying that you will be able to apply in all of your relationship dynamics, working, familial relationships, friendships, etc. So we're going to dive right into it. Okay. Again, why is it important to have inviting conversations? Because conversating and communicating, especially in relationships, especially if it's intimate ones, sometimes it can be challenging. It could be difficult. And I know for me, you guys can let me know. I think one of the things that is challenging, and one of the things that sometimes thwart our ability to communicate fluidly with each other, is that you don't want to be misunderstood, right? You want the person to understand where you're coming from. You want to be seen. And it takes courage, right? To expose yourself, the vulnerability aspect of it. So there's so many things that come into play that would cause someone to kind of be hesitant, in communicating their earnest, honest feelings to someone. So we've been talking about a few things. There are 3 things that I will review, all of the things that we have already presented, but I want to dive into the 3 that I want to present tonight. So the first one came about, I was talking to actually one of my very close friends, and she's newly wed, new to being a wife. And she asked me a question on the phone because I was telling her, for me, in becoming a wife, that's something that you have to learn. Like, there are skills when it comes to going into husbandry, if you're a gentleman that's considering becoming a husband, as well as a woman who then becomes a wife, right? There's certain things that that change when you get married. And so she was asking me in our conversation, how did you create like an environment, that reflected, a home with your husband when you got married? And so I thought of this answer and this statement that I'm going to tie into the conversation of how to have better conversations and how to create an inviting environment to have conversations. And I said, one of the main things that I thought of when Ben and I first got married is that I just wanted to create a peaceful environment. When we got married, we moved away. We were initially in New Jersey, closer to New York, and then we moved out to PA. But Ben, in the beginning, was still commuting back and forth to work, and the commute was about, on a good day, y'all, a good day, 2 hours, right? That's a good day. But where we live in the mountains and lots of snow. So definitely the winter season when there was a lot of harsh weather, harsh conditions, whether it was a lot of snow or ice, his commute could be easy 4 hours just one way. That's one way, right? So you're talking about 8 hours sometimes of commuting back and forth. And so I really wanted to create an environment that where he came home, he can drop all of it at the door and it would just resonate, a reset, a recharge, peaceful, and so I told her some of the ways that I did it was just, right, 101, just clean home, clean atmosphere. 2, we're music. We are musicians. We're music. We are music. We're musicians, both him and I. So we often, all the time, will have music playing in the household. I'm a little different from him. He grew up in Brooklyn, so he can listen to a lot of any kind of music. It could be fast, and while he's going to sleep, he can sleep through it. I'm not like that, so I like the more calming, peaceful music for the most part. So there is an album that he created that is very calming and peaceful. So I told her I'd put that on. A nice meal, a nice juicy, meat that fall off the bone, etc. Meal for him, and just him having space to, if he comes in, to recharge, so I would greet him, but I would give him space to, be able to process whatever he had to experience during the day. So the principle to have better conversations is basically create a inviting environment consistently in your household that where you can have great conversation, or if I would say for me, I know what it has afforded, and not so much. I mean, I definitely for Ben and I, because we created it, but what I've seen, how it's helped other people who have come to our house because of the environment that we have. I used to do my Interact coaching sessions in here before it turned into a business, and people would always say, right, it was an atmosphere that they felt like they could just kind of like peel back the layers and feel okay to be vulnerable and feel like the things that they were going through, they could process through it and they could get some kind of like answer, so I have seen that it affords that for, not just us, but also the people who come into our household. And I think that's important because, we're going to go through so many things in life, so many stages in life that we go through, some very joyous, and new beginnings, like when you're first starting out your family and things like that. And while it's exciting, it still is an adjustment. And so when you have a consistent household where the environment is peaceful, then the things that you're navigating, if they're hard transitioning moments in life, or if they're just like unpredictable circumstances that come up, the environment almost acts like a third party or a third person, to where it automatically, because of the environment that's created, it de-escalates, if there is issues that you have to kind of hash out, or if you're having, an argument or a conversation or a hard conversation, the environment actually plays a vital part in it, because it's very hard. It's like if someone's going to a beach and looking at the serene water or a placid lake, etc. It's harder to be very aggressive and not consider your partner, or consider, honestly, if you're in nature kind of diffuses everything naturally. If you're not a person that's very, very strong-willed and want to hold on to whatever feelings that you have in the moment, the nature will kind of like automatically, right, release it. So in that same way, when you have things, I know I have friends who, for them, maybe creating a good environment in their home is having, nature background sounds. We have a home studio here, and in my husband's office, he has like these nature sounds where it sounds like animals, almost if you were walking through an African safari when you go in there. It's so very interesting. But it has that type of, effect when you go in there, because here you are in the studio, which is all teched out, with all with the latest equipment and things like that. But then you're hearing all these serene sounds and pops of animals that you'd probably find in another country. And so it brings you into, a different space when you want to, try to be inspired to create something musically. So that's the first one that I wanted to bring out for tonight, of how to have better conversations, how to create an atmosphere to have inviting conversations. And one is really intentionally create an external atmosphere in your home, in your environment, that will act as a third party, another person, to be able to kind of diffuse and de-escalate certain situations that might come up between the two of you. So definitely that's one. Number two, this one I love. This is something that, honestly, I can definitely thank my husband for helping me work on. And definitely the scripture in the Bible that says, double-minded man is unstable in all his ways. So I'll explain it to you like this. Basically, the word that I can use to kind of sum it up is decisiveness, right? Is be a decisive person. And why, Sharla, would this play into how you can have better conversations? Because I have learned, and this is through experience, I'm putting myself out there, you guys, by telling you, my husband is very like, and you guys let me know, all the women in here, the married women, if your husband is like this too, because I don't know if this is just like a man thing, a masculine type of nature and trait. I do think it is, just in my opinion, but even more so, right, that my husband is definitely double down, the 10 feet down to the ground like this, where he point A to B, right? It's like, okay, what is it? What is it that you're telling me? Make it clear, make it plain. And one of the things he hates doing is like zigzagging, So if we're going here and I tell him, okay, we're going there, he's not a person where it's like, okay, now you're saying, okay, now we need to go back to the store to go get this and that, or if we say we're going to the movies, now you want to say we're going to here. He's just a person that is like, okay, if you said this is where we're going. And, when I was younger, it used to kind of like, not annoy me, but I didn't understand the importance of it. Like I didn't understand, because I'm very free flowing, very much feminine energy in that way, right? Like don't get me wrong, I'm ambitious. I have aims, and when those aims are there, I'll write them down, and I'm gonna get them done. But I'm very much the person that is like, okay, well, let's just flow. Like I'm gonna get it done, but and my youngest daughter, she reminds me of that, because we'll go on a bike ride with my family, and my son is like, like, let's go. If we're going to the park, let's go. It's very much like his father. But my youngest daughter, we're going to go to the park, but it's like, oh, mommy, I want to pick the flowers and I want to stop it. And, and it annoys my It annoys my son. But when I'm looking at her, I'm like, okay, yeah, you're definitely like your mom, you know? And so sometimes I would do that, right? It's like, okay, I said I was going to do this. I'm going to do it. But then I would do a zigzag. Like, okay, well, and if my husband would ask me, he was like, well, you said you were going to do this. Did you do this? And I'm like, oh yeah, I'm getting to it. But it's like, okay, I told him that like maybe an hour or 2 hours ago. And for me, this is how I would justify it in my mind. I would say, well, I'm getting all of these other things done though, you know, even though I haven't done this thing yet. And he's like, no, 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 no. You know, certain things, when you say that you are going to do them, you need to do them right away, right? Because there are certain things that if you communicate, whether it's to yourself or to someone else, that it has a certain energy, a certain movement on it. And when you delay it, you know, it takes from sometimes the impact that it can create, depending on what it is that you have been either instructed to do or have instructed yourself to do, etc. And definitely have learned that. Oh my goodness, as I've gotten older, and I saw how it affected when it was time for me to communicate. Because, you know, I'm always saying on here, I said it in the beginning of the opening of tonight's show, is that communication is happening all the time. That was actually number one relationship skill and principle and mindset I said for us to take on to have better conversations is not to be so heavy on the vocalization, right? Heavy on, oh, I have something to say to you, and pay attention to all the things that you're communicating beforehand, before you actually are vocalizing, right? Because we're communicating so much throughout the day with our body language and our disposition and, you know, towards one another. And so I realized that sometimes my lack of decisiveness, when I would have that throughout like the day or throughout the month or et cetera, by the time I would have, you know, sit down and have these things that I want to say to Ben, you know, it caused also him not necessarily, and he's open, but, you know, if you're dealing with someone who has not been decisive within the things that they've said that they want to do, and then now when they come and conversate with you, it's kind of hard, you know, to, I guess, feel, and I don't know if safe is the right word, but more of like, you know, when someone, I'll put it like this. When you're dealing with someone decisive, and I'll use my husband as an example, it's really easy for me to conversate with him because I know there has been so much, right, that he's either said in passing or I've seen him have the follow through with. So now there's an automatic openness and receptivity to what he's going to say to me, because most likely whatever he's going to say, I know there's weight to it, right? It's not like you're just giving me words that there won't be a follow through on, you know, because I know that in your nature and your character, you've displayed and you've demonstrated a person who is like, okay, yeah, if this person says this, like bottom line, you know, they're going to do that. And I that's the best way that I can explain it right now. So if you are attentive within yourself of how decisive or indecisive you are when it comes to your decisions or your choices or your actions that you want to take just for your own, right, your own life, you will see how much it impacts the people, right, that you talk to. Because if they see that you're this type of person, then it's almost like, okay, yeah, it's already creates a environment, you know, or they can anticipate the experience of engaging in conversation with you, because the conversation is not going to be like they're going to walk away and say, well, this person said all this, but are they really going to, you know, do all the things that they said that they were going to do, or are they, you know? So, oh my goodness, Shani, how are you? Beautiful. Thank you for hopping in. We're talking about how to have better conversations. So feel free to share your wisdom. Thank you, hon, for coming in. I appreciate it. So Decisiveness. That is one of the ways that we can have better conversations. That is one of the ways that you can create an inviting environment to want that person who is your partner to communicate with you. And again, it's really just paying attention to how much you follow through with your own, right? Your own ideas, your own thoughts, your own actions. How many times are you doing something and then not zigzagging, and saying, okay, I'm going to follow through with this. I know for me, the journey for me, because remember, I was one of those people, and I would justify it, again, by saying I'm doing so many things in between. That's why I haven't, done this one thing that I told you that I was going to do. I would say that to Ben. But now I realize that, I want to distance my time, the time that I have, or the delay that I have between being instructed to doing something and doing it, because when you get the inspiration, when you get the instruction and you're on it, the energy that you get with it, you're not only, doing that action, but the energy and the impact that comes along with it on that first inspiration or that first boost of energy, then that goes along with it. So that's one of the ways that we can have better conversations in doing that as well. So let's review some of the things that we already talked about. So again, one, know that communication is happening all the time, right? We know the outward appearance. One of the most simplest things that we talked about earlier on how to have better conversations, especially I always say for the wives, the women that I coach, I always say, know your husband's favorite color. Incorporate those favorite colors in the outfits that you have, because that color on an outfit on his favorite person makes his ear more keener, right? To listen and be attentive to what you have to say. And it might sound like it's superficial, but listen, it's true. People do judge people on their outward appearance. People do. We say this, it should not be so, but it's just human nature. We would be negating that, right? I'm not saying that you don't take the time out to learn someone, but if we know that this is something that is what people kind of lean to, then we can use those things as skill sets too, right? Get attention. I'll use it in this example that I think will make it a little bit clearer and maybe not make it sound so superficial. If you're anybody who's in the arts, I love acting, I love singing. And even if you go to someone who goes to church, right, we incorporate music, we incorporate the preaching of the word. You have the singers and the band. And the reason why experiences like that, right, are able to make people get entrenched in what they're experiencing in the moment is because they're utilizing all of these different things that ignite, right? All of our senses. The more senses you can get involved, the better, right? So if I can vibrant colors, if I can look at that, if I hear beautiful sounds, you're triggering my hearing, all of that, right, brings it in. So look at it in that way so that it's not necessarily something that's superficial, but it's something that now you're actually using as a skill. I teach and have taught in the past to my clients where we talk about attractiveness, and I'll say, ask them how attractive, do you feel that you are? Attraction is different from attractiveness. Attractiveness is actually the your talents, your skills, your character, the things that you possess that will draw the attention of people and keep them there because there's something about you that is magnetic. So we literally go over things like that on how to leverage it, because sometimes there are things that God has gifted us with, and sometimes we don't utilize them to our fullest capacity because sometimes we judge it as superficial, It took me a while as I've grown in maturity that there are certain things that, because I didn't necessarily lean into it or care too much about it, that I would kind of like put it to the side and dismiss it and not look at it as something that God gave me to be able to utilize to, right, be able to bring, people into his kingdom or help people build, families and strong relationships. And so I'm saying be open. I'm saying don't, because communication is happening all the time. So what you wear, even if you think it's superficial or it doesn't matter to you, there are people who will, right, will lean into whatever it is that you have and have on or wearing, or how you're saying something or expressing, or how you did your hair or et cetera, or makeup. And maybe those are things that you're interested in, but that could be the one thing that could lead that person to you. And then, right, when they meet you, then they can experience, right, the extra layers of who you in your heart feel like you really are, and allow that then, right, to minister. So communication is happening all the time. So look at the ways that you communicate on the regular. Most of us, it is the vocalizing of it and communicating vocally to each other, but let's not dismiss the other modes. So just like I tell my clients, write some sticky notes to each other. It could be just, I love you. I just was listening to, while I was at the park with my kids, Charlie Kirk, because I don't know if anyone has been like me, from just looking at, the horror of him being literally, right, killed in front of everyone. It's heartbreaking. And there's so much now, right, dissension between people who feel like whatever he stood for, that they should not, have empathy. There are people who are celebrating because of the things. So there's a divide in it. So I never want to go with, because I didn't really know that much about him. There was one podcast that I do listen to where he was on, and when he was on, I didn't hear him say anything that was like way to the left that I could make any kind of judgment to say some of the things that other people have said about him. And so, of course, because I deal with relationships, I wanted to look for something that I could see him and his wife, right? Because anybody could say anything about someone, but I need to see, at least for me, I like to see that person acting and functioning in the fundamental, right, institution that God created. And so a video came up with him and his wife. And one of the things they were doing, like, I guess his wife was doing a summit for women, and he was there also answering the questions with her. And I think one of the women asked him, how does he basically hold space for his wife? Because she was saying for her, she's a very emotional woman and men are very logical. And sometimes she feels because she's emotional that the men that she's with don't really know how to kind of like create a space and fully understand what she's going through. And he had said something that I thought was just beautiful. And matter of fact, I think it was his wife, where she was saying this is what he does. And she said he has a very busy schedule. In this clip, this was, before his passing, she said he has a very busy schedule, but there's two things that stood out to me that she said. She said, we practice the Sabbath. And she said, no matter how busy he is, he cuts everything off. And they, in the particular clip, she said that they traditionally practice like the Jewish Sabbath on a Saturday. And so that's really hard, right? It's for somebody who's busy and business and things like that to practice it on that day. And she said he'll put his phone in the drawer. He will not work. He will not take any questions. And he is just present with her and the children without fail. So I thought that was like amazing. So that was number one. Number two, the other thing that stood out to me, she said, the way that he holds emotional space with her is that without fail, he'll write a note to her on a sticky note and then give it to her and lay it, either on her pillow. And she says she keeps everyone. She's kept everyone that he gave to her. And all I could think of as I was listening to that, I was like, oh my gosh, how much she could. It's making me choke up. Jeez. Whew. I'm choking up because when she said it, I'm just thinking now, because I didn't choke up when I listened to it, but now that I'm thinking about it, I'm thinking about there was a birthday that I had where I woke up, and in our home, it's like our master bedroom, and you can come out and you see like the living room, and you go around, you kind of wrap around to the kitchen. And I woke up and all I could see was like all of these sticky notes attached to the wall that Ben put up, of just praise to me. Just wonderful wife, wonderful mother, just all of these things. So I'm just thinking as I'm saying now, like how much she must be treasuring and looking back at all of those sticky notes that he wrote to her, and grateful that she has that, right, to keep with her, knowing that he has passed and gone. And so I'm sorry, I didn't know I was going to get choked up, but such it is. It's live. That it made me think about that. And so I think it's all the more reason for us to not just focus on what we want to say to each other in the moment, because, unless you record it, right? You record the messages, and God knows I'm grateful for the recordings that I have for people who I have loved that have passed and gone. I have a recording from my wonderful Caribbean grandmother of her praying, sending a prayer to me on the phone. And oh my gosh, I cherish that because she's not here. But if she had just said it to me, and many times we have prayed together, but it would have been passing, right? And I wouldn't have it as like an artifact that I can play over and over again. I can hear her voice. I remember we had a close like friend of the family, and her husband had passed away, and we were in like having a very in-depth conversation. Ben, her husband, and I remember I had recorded it, and he passed away, and I just remember like just, oh my gosh, wanting to look for it so that I can give it to her, because I just, can imagine just having the longing of hearing the person that you love so much, having their voice just kind of, capsulated in time so you can go back and hear it whenever you wish. So I would say that using that example, all the more the importance of using other modes of communication, of not just, feeling something in the moment and saying, I gotta get it off my chest, and I gotta, tell you. I'm not saying to muffle your feelings or your expressions, but I am saying I think there is a beauty and a freedom in utilizing as many ways as God can give you, or as that you can creatively think of, to express either your adoration, express the season, or wherever you feel that you guys are in the midst of your friendship, of your marriage, whatever dynamic relationship that you're in, because it can be the very thing that you're like, oh my goodness, because we know no one knows the exact day and time of their, transcendence from here, but we all know that we all will at some point. So to have left something behind, something that is sentimental, something that is reflective of the way that you felt about or thought about someone, is a great thing for that person to have. So knowing that communication is always happening, being attentive to your body language, your disposition, your appearance, right? All of that will create an inviting environment to have better conversations with each other. We talked about just having care, just care, genuine care for the person that you're in a relationship with. And I know that's for anyone listening to this who feels like, well, I'm just kind of naturally a good person, so I care for the person, and why would I be with someone who I don't care with? Again, I say, routine sometimes will make us lack on honor for the people who are in our life because we can take for granted that they're there. And we're notorious, just human beings are notorious for forgetting the blessings that God pours and gives to us. Whether it's this beautiful idea, business idea, creative endeavor, project, and when you got to put all the work into it, and then it becomes like exhausting. It's like, oh gosh, I'm calling myself out. I'm guilty of it too, where you're just like, I gotta do it again, and you forget, right? You forget, your initial maybe yearning for it, whether it could be your partner, the yearning, the prayer that you had before they came, and now maybe they're here and they're doing things that get on your last nerve, or things that you wouldn't particularly do it the way that they are doing it. And we forget, So I always tell my clients, like, okay, I see you're having this issue and that issue and so on. What was the prayer that you had before in the beginning for the person who God has brought by your side now? What was that prayer? Can you write it down? Do you remember what the words were? Do you remember, more importantly, how it felt saying the words? And then even more importantly, do you remember how it felt when you realized, whatever that moment was, that you realized, oh my God, this is the fulfillment of the prayer that I put up, to my creator, to heaven. So in just bringing ourselves and resetting back to those moments, right, will bring back the honor, will take us out of the busyness of doing and not getting back into, where what we're really supposed to, which is being first, right? Being and being present and really experiencing what it is, right? This life that God has given us. It's not easy because we have responsibilities. And so those things can overtake and feel overwhelming at times and take us out of the being. My husband always says it's not love. He's like, the being comes before the doing, and for me, a person who likes to do do a lot, it's helpful to hear. It's helpful to hear that, because I don't want to just do, I want to be able to actually really experience the things that, God has called me to do, the impact that I'm making. It's you want to be able to experience that. Hey, Pesh, how are you? Thank you for popping in. We are talking about how to have better conversations. So feel free. I would love to hear from a married man, which he is, guys. So a beautiful, gorgeous wife and a beautiful family, from a male perspective, not male, a man's perspective of how, whether you want to say your wife creates an inviting environment or atmosphere to where you feel like you can have the conversations are inviting, right? So feel free. But I put some things out already, and that's what you came in on. So where are we? Care. Yep, having genuine care for a person. Number 2, number 3 is something that I don't think when I said it, people are like, well, I don't know. You guys can let me know, the ones who are on tonight. But sometimes we don't want to go the extra mile to improve our relationships or to make things more efficient or effective, right? Like in all the other areas of life, whether it's your business, maybe even a creative endeavor, we'll go the extra mile, but when it comes to our relationships, maybe not. So one of the tips that I gave was that basically you can mirror and practice what you want to say before you say it to your partner. And I told them my background is communication studies. It is theater arts, definitely in singing. We are taught to do this, which is go in front of a mirror, sing your song in front of the mirror, say your lines in front of the mirror, or record yourself saying your speech, knowing what intent you have. Like, is it to persuade the audience? Is it to inspire them, etc.? Because you want your intent and your communicative approach to match, right? You want them to align. And a lot of communication issues is sometimes the intent that the person has does not align with the communicative approach that they're taking, right? So this is one way that you can have those things align, and as I said before, when I introduced it in the previous episodes, is if you feel like, well, that's too much, maybe I don't need to be with that person if I have to practice, what I need to say with them. I just want to say what I got to say, I hear you. But I would say, especially if you're talking about either already being married or approaching marriage, this is a decision that's going to affect the rest of your life. I always say it is the second decision after, surrendering to Christ, is the person that you choose to marry is going to change the trajectory of your life. So if prioritizing it by putting the energy that you have in the right area to improve areas of your relationships, that is going to be constant, which is communication, that we want to have clarity in, and we want to be able to feel like we can come to each other on a daily basis, and definitely in moments in life where we need to connect and talk to each other, whether to recharge or to help create space to process things, then why not? You're not going to lose. You're only going to get better. You're only going to become a better communicator by doing that. It's not going to harm you. So if you're married, definitely that it is your blessing. It is your honor to take the extra mile to, to serve the person that you have chosen to be in relationship and in life with, right? And if you are single, and dating potential people or a potential partner, you're not going to lose, because maybe someone will say, I don't want to do all that. What if I do all that and they leave? It's not about that, right? It's about, okay, I want to become better, because whether they're your person or not, if you're developing a skill that's going to improve a central aspect of what relationships need to be healthy and to be cultivated, you're not going to lose, because you have already done, right? Practice makes permanent. The training ground for the next person who comes in, who is your person now, is going to benefit from that. And you of yourself is going to benefit from it, because then you become a better communicator, and you have now honed in and sharpened the skill of, okay, this is what my intention is. This is what I want to express and convey. And so now I know how to formulate it in the right way so that it can be delivered, and my approach can match my intention. So let me take a moment, because Pej, thank you, Pej, she then wrote to me, guys. I don't even want to say what. I'm sorry. I'm like laughing all in the mic. I can't, Pej. Lord, he said, hold up. I was getting, I'm going to put it like this, guys. He was putting his beautiful children to bed. We're talking about how to have better conversations. Feel free if you want to, you do not have to. I just was saying, if I can hear from a man's perspective, how does your wife or anybody else, it might be a friend, create an environment where you're having inviting conversations, right? So if you're communicating with someone, and maybe they lack vulnerability or they're resistant, it can create where it's not an inviting, right? We can't have an inviting conversation because it's just conflicting. It might be aggressive. The approach might, just land wrong. So let me know from either your personal perspective and experience, or maybe just in general from the men in your life. You hear from them. What are some of the things that they say? So please feel free if you want to say anything. You don't have to, though. But I just wanted to let you know what we were talking about. And you know what? If your camera ready, I haven't done that. I should have did that in the beginning, guys. I always forget. You can call into my show now, guys. For a while now, But if you don't want to type, because I know it takes so long to do it, I actually have a line that you can join in, and you just click the link and you join. So, not everybody's camera ready right now at this moment, but if you are, that's the link that I put there. So feel free if you want to join in that way, or you can type it however you feel. Let me put it in the other sites too, just in case anybody wants to call in. All right. So what have we said so far? Communication happens all the time. Check the ways that you normatively communicate with each other. If you're very heavy on just talking with each other, which is not a problem, but let's try to add some variety. Maybe add some text messages in there. Maybe beautiful, quick sticky notes of notes to your, I love you, I appreciate you, etc. Delve into all the other ways that you can communicate, and know that communication is happening all the time. It's not just when you decide to say whatever you need to say, right? And pay attention to what's being communicated in between that time that you have the conversation, right? 2, we talked about just having care for the person that you're with, because I do think we can forget to just simply care for the person that you're with. The honor can diminish as routines and you get used to that person being in your life. You can forget. So easy way to remember the gratitude, remember the prayer that occurred before that person was brought into your life, or remember how it was an answered prayer the moment you knew that, etc. Any of those things will bring you back to that place. We talked about an inviting external environment, and I gave examples of what I do, continue to do, definitely did in the beginning of my marriage and still do now, nice clean home, nice inviting music, definitely a good old meal. I was just talking to my newly married friend, and I was just telling her, I was like, I don't care how big of the spectrum, like even if it's a man who cooks, because we have friends where the men, they throw down, they are the primary cookers in the family, okay? But even a man who has that type of skill set and passion for cooking can appreciate a nice meal that has a lot of love and tender meat that falls off the bone if they eat meat, but a good, flavorful, savory meal. Like, I don't know any man who would not appreciate that, right? So if you've had all that going on in the environment, no matter what you talk about, that environment kind of sets the tone that will help either to de-escalate a situation that has been, maybe escalating in a direction that you guys don't want it to. Or it will create an atmosphere where you can kind of dive deep and deal with some issues. Pej says, I've been practicing keeping the end goal in mind when starting those conflict resolution convos, leading with grace. Okay. I appreciate that. So I'm reading that as like you from a husband's perspective, that would help to create an inviting kind of conversation for your wife to have with you when you're in that type of mindset. I can understand that. Yeah, thank you. I appreciate. Definitely. I love that. Leading with grace. Yeah. I like that. I think that what you just said kind of ties into one of the things that I presented tonight, which was decisiveness. Just being a decisive person. I was telling them that my husband is very decisive. Like when he is going to do something, he's very A to B. So it's like A to B, nothing else in the way, to get it done. And I'm not necessarily like that. I'm getting better, but definitely in the beginning I wasn't. And I really didn't understand. I was telling him I didn't understand, what's the problem? If especially for me, because I can be an overachiever at times, and I could put a lot of things on my plate to do. And so I am a person that will get it done. Like if you speak to anyone, friends, family, and if they ask, this about me, like, is Sharla a person that, what she says she does, they'll say that. But I do think, and I'll out myself, I'm learning better to be better at this now, is to delay the time and the distance between what I said I was going to do and when it gets done, right? And my husband's the complete opposite. It's like, okay, I'm doing this and it's going to get done, right away. He's very much into like taking that first energy that you get. And as I have grown and matured, I see the value in that, especially when it comes to when God tells you to do something. One of the pastor at the church, one of the biggest churches for where we live, he said, delayed obedience is just disobedience, when it comes down to it. And I said, that is so true. It's so true that when you hear something, you want to do it in that time because there's a certain amount of energy and a certain amount of impact that will be made if you like use that right first energy that you get to it. And sometimes in life, there are so many things that can come in and just kind of distract you, from doing what you need to do. So the more you're a person like that, I know for me, being, Ben's wife, it makes for a very, it makes our conversations where it's very inviting for me to have a conversation and with him, because I know he's a person that has great follow through. It's like, imagine talking to a person who doesn't have great follow through, but they're talking all of this, all of these things. But at the end of the day, it's like, okay, well, I just gave you a lot of my time. But I don't even know if half of these things that you said you really gonna do, So, so that's one of the things that I said can also create an inviting, conversation, inviting environment, to have better conversations. Because if you're practicing that within yourself, then it's like, imagine two, right? You have the husband and the wife both doing that, and doubling down on that. Man, you'll get so many things done. You'll be able to build together so beautifully if both of you are, have that type of mindset and perspective when it comes to it. So those are some of the things. I'm trying to think if I missed any. Let me look at my notes real quick, y'all. I think that was, if I did, I definitely gave you the ones that, affirming, which I think is good. Affirm, the vulnerability that they give you. And that could be just like whatever little things, right? So if they say something, I appreciate you, talking to me. I appreciate you being okay with being open, etc. That's helpful because, all of us, it takes courage, when it comes to exposing ourselves, even when it comes to, exposing yourself to someone who you feel is close to you. It's just still vulnerable. Because at any moment, whatever true feelings that you have or true intent can be misunderstood. And sometimes, it doesn't always feel good when we feel like we've been misunderstood. So definitely affirming and appreciating them coming to you is important. So let me just make sure I gave you everything. Oh, I cannot get over here without giving you this one. For sure. We talked about the most overlooked part of communication, which is listening, right? About a good 90%. A good 90% of being able to communicate effectively and creating and establishing and cultivating, inviting conversations is just listening, right? The more I listen, the more I can have the opportunity to understand. So if we're not leading with listening first, then, oh man, yeah. So I definitely didn't want to get off here without that one, So all of those are ways that we can have better conversations, right? Tone of voice, all of that, all of those things create. And open-ended questions, yeah, that's a good one too. I want to leave you guys with that one too. You know. So thank you guys for coming on with me. I think we are pretty much done. I think I reviewed just about all of them with you. I hope we've been talking about this for the last 3 shows. So I'm hoping that some of the things that we brought out have, you guys have been able to apply it in your relationships and be able to communicate, effectively, better with each other. Since it's central and it's always happening, we might as well learn how to do it very skillfully, So I appreciate you guys as always for your time and your energy. If you liked anything that you've heard, definitely you know the drill. Go to my Forever Friends Academy YouTube channel, subscribe, like, comment, etc. Spread to those, who you feel might benefit from the content. I'd appreciate that. And I will be back on with you guys, God willing, next Thursday. I have, for those of you who didn't hear the announcement, I don't come on Sundays anymore. I only come on the Thursdays because I am working on bringing something new to you guys. And so I need that time for that. So I appreciate you. I appreciate everyone who stopped in, especially Cassie, who was on for the first time tonight. I appreciate you. And beautiful Shani, thank you. Love for coming in. Of course, Pej, always love your wisdom. I thank you for popping in as always. And anyone else on the other platforms. I appreciate you guys. All right. Thank you, Pej. Good seeing you. Please keep taking care of your wonderful, beautiful family. That's so awesome. All right. Have a good night, guys. As always remember to live to love freely. Until next time. Bye.